What's going on, fight fans, degenerate gamblers? We're talking Total Takedown UFC 316. If you checked out the Monday show, we already broke every single fight down on this card today. We are going back over my favorite looks at overs and unders. I'm going to give you a couple that I think stand out to me where there's a little bit of value on the line, give you an alternative to bet this card without having to pick a side. Do me a favor, get subscribed if you haven't, hit the like button at the very least, and let's get on into it. First fight of the night, Quillian Salkilld takes on Yanel Ashmoz. And I talked about this a little bit on my Monday show. Make sure you go watch that. It's a little long, but it's okay. You can do it. I believe in you. Total is 2.5. The over 2.5 is minus 180. The under 2.5 is plus 140. Now in this fight, this number has come down. There's money coming in on the under here, and I get it. I completely understand. When we broke this fight down on my show, I actually thought the total was going to be sitting at 1.5, not 2.5, and I was a little disappointed because the over 2.5 was chalked up, and I am surprised that the bookies were smart enough to do that. You've got Quillian Salkilld coming off of a round one finish. You have got Yanel Ashmoz, who made his UFC debut with a one-hitter quitter over Peterson. So I'm expecting they think violence for both these men. Well, I think both guys are relatively durable. I think Salkilld is going to have to mind the range and the distance here against Yanel Ashmoz. And Ashmoz is a guy who knows how to grind. He knows how to use his physicality, his wrestling. He's got very good takedowns. I actually think he's going to avoid some of the big shots and alleviate some of the pressure from Quillian Salkilld by shooting doubles and putting this tall, lanky kid on his ass. So I actually kind of like the over 2.5. I like the anti-violence to start the night here. I'm not 1,000% convinced that Quillian Salkilld is just the next big thing. I know a lot of people are, but I need more proof of that, so I need to see it. I think this is going to be a really tough test for him. This is a big step up in competition, so even if he does win this fight, usually when fighters get a big first step up in competition, it takes them longer to get the job done. Sometimes they barely squeeze out a win, so I'm looking at over 2.5. Minus 180. It's not a fair price. Like I said, I wanted a 1.5, not a 2.5. But fight goes the distance on this one, I actually think is a little sneaky where a lot of people are going to be expecting violence. Next up, Ariane De Silva and Kong Wang. We spent a lot of time talking about Kong Wang recently, haven't we? She's only been in the UFC for a couple of fights, and boy, have we swung back and forth on this chick. I like the under 2.5 at plus 115 here. I like violence in this fight. Shocker, I know, right? What the hell just happened? I don't think you guys want to be looking at my gut for the rest of the show. I'm so sorry about that. My stand just completely snapped. The show must go on. We're 2 minutes in. You think I'm going to be bothered to re-record that whole thing I just did on Quillian Salkilld? Not a chance. You guys get a shot at my gut, and we're going to move right along. We've got, Kong Wang. I had the round 2 and round 3 props in her last fight. Big. Because Bruna Brazil is a sitting duck, and I thought Kong Wang absolutely was going to nuke her. I can't help but believe the exact same thing in this fight. I know we just saw that she is probably not going to be doing that. However, I still think that she's facing a chinny fighter where she's got a very large striking advantage on. And let's not forget that Kong Wang actually got hurt and finished herself in her last UFC fight. I'm sorry, the one before her last UFC fight. She got knocked out and submitted in the same fight. Her grappling is something that is still improving. She is working on it. She's out at Team Alpha Male, it looks like, getting ready for this one. But there's always the opportunity for grappling and submission upside from Ariane De Silva. Somebody who might look to take it to the ground when she realizes she's a little outed on the feet. I think there's submission upside for Ariane De Silva here in this fight. So both women can definitely finish. Both women can be finished, and we've seen it. So give me the under 2.5 at plus 115. Markel Medeiros and Mark Choinsky in the next fight. Tough fight to call. Minus 185 to the over 2.5. And I want to look at anti-violence yet again. Markel Medeiros barely survived his UFC debut. He got taken down and he got controlled a lot. From what I understand, Mark Choinsky is actually a really good offensive grappler. Now, from what I saw on the tape, he does seem to be decent. He's doing it against low-level competition, so I'm not sure I'm overly impressed at this point, but he has yet to really be tested, so I'm going to withhold judgment. I'm not going to knock the guy for defeating who has been put in front of him to this point. Considering he's taking on Medeiros, who we know has a little bit of trouble with the takedown defense, I think cage control, clinching, grappling, wrestling is going to be a big part of this game plan. And then on the flip side of this, if Markel Medeiros is to win this fight, I think he's going to have to mind his P's and Q's. I think he's going to have to control the distance and the timing, and I think he's going to have a hard time putting away someone like Choinski. So because of the combination there, the dual threat with the grappling, I think both guys are going to be looking towards a decision. So I like the over 2.5 here. Minus 185, it's a little bit pricey, but don't bother picking a side. I think you can just sit back and watch this one take place. Sergey Spivak and Waldo Cortez Acosta is the next one I want to bring to your attention. Under 2.5, minus 155. I like violence with the big boys. You guys know I usually like to go over 1.5 in the heavyweight division because these guys will be a little lumbering, a little bit slow. Nobody wants to get touched first. And as soon as one of them gets wounded, then the fists start flying. So I can see this getting up and over 1.5. But in this particular spot, it's a test of, can Sergey Spivak get the grappling going or not? We have seen him be an absolutely terrible nail on the feet. Waldo Cortez Acosta is not a guy who I want to write home about with his power. However, he has very fast and accurate hands. So when he does get his hands going, he can put a hurting on some people. And we've seen Sergey Spivak wilt under that kind of pressure before. So I think Waldo can win by knockout. Even though I don't think he's a massive knockout threat generally, this is the kind of fight where he could. Now, Sergey Spivak on the opposite side of this thing, I think he can take down Waldo Cortez with relative ease. I think he can chain grapple Waldo Cortez with relative ease. And when you get a big guy like that who's going down over and over and over and over again, they eventually get tired. They eventually give up a bad position in a scramble. Spivak actually has some little man jiu-jitsu skills in his game, so he'll be able to climb onto the back. He'll be able to flatten him out. He'll look for arm triangles. I actually think the submission is probably my favorite look here on this fight for Sergey Spivak. But I think this fight is ending one way or the other. So give me the violence, minus 155. We're going to skip some of these fights here in the middle because I think props are maybe a better way to approach it than the totals. But the next ones we're going to talk about is kind of towards the end of this pay-per-view card here. Kevin Gastelum and Joe Pyfer. We have a 2.5 here. Over 2.5 is minus 125, and I kind of like that. I know it's odd, right? Joe Pyfer is a guy I think I primarily want to bet unders on. However, we've seen he struggles when he takes up a step in competition. You know, we've been talking about that. Basically, that's the theme of this entire card tonight, apparently. Joe Pyfer, when he fights legitimate opponents, people who he can't just bully and bum rush and knock out immediately in the first round, those are guys that he is struggling to really put together a full 15 or 25 minute game plan against, and Kelvin Gastelum is exactly the kind of guy that's going to put him in that tough position here. Kelvin Gastelum is well known for his durability. He's well known for his boxing, and even though Joe Pyfer is going to look like he's a full weight class larger than Kelvin Gastelum in this spot, even though he will have some grappling upside, even though there's a potential that Joe Pyfer has some submission upside, he's more of a brute. He's more of a guy that wants to consolidate control. He wants to bully you. He wants to take you down. He's not quite as savvy as a guy like Brady. So I'm not sure he's going to get the submission here on Kelvin Gastelum. In fact, I think he's going to have to take some time to rest and recover and take a few breaks once he gets to top position, because Kelvin's just going to be a little too quick and a little Energizer bunny for him chasing around the cage. So I think we're going to see a decision. I think whether Joe Pyfer grinds this thing out and shows that he is a contender at this weight class, or if Kelvin Gastelum upsets the apple cart, I don't see him finishing Joe Pyfer. I actually thought Kelvin Gastelum by KO at Elevation was going to be something I kind of liked. Round 3 TKO type of situation where Joe Pyfer's just too exhausted to pull that thing off. But now that we're not at Elevation, I think the cardio is going to be a little bit less of a factor at play here, and I think we'll see this thing go the full 15 minutes. So it's a coin flip, a little juice to the over, minus 125. That's the way I'm looking. I am skipping the co-main event, you guys, because I think violence is probably what we're going to expect to see here, and it's probably going to happen sooner than later. So no need to talk about the under on a women's MMA fight that is minus 200. So for your main event, Merab Dvalishvili takes on Sean O'Malley in a rematch. I've talked to you guys before about how rematches never go the same way as the first fight. There's always new wrinkles. There's always things that are different. But in these high, extremely high, especially title type of fights, you don't get a lot of finishes. Now, I was a big supporter and proponent of Sean O'Malley getting a KO over Aljamain Sterling. We knew that was coming. We called the exact punch. We got it done. We got it done early. Now, he can KO Merab. We saw him in the last couple rounds of their first fight where he was getting those shots up the middle going, the body kicks. He was actually getting to Merab and damaging him. We have seen Merab rocked many times. So I have to admit that Sean O'Malley's knockout prop is totally live here. Merab is talking a lot about going out there and being exciting and getting a finish this time. So you would think we'd be looking maybe at an under. However, one of the things Sean O'Malley said in his interview this week is that he understands if you don't touch him, you can't beat him. And I think that that speaks volumes of what the game plan is here. He's going to utilize the big cage. He's going to utilize his footwork and his reach, and that's something we've seen him do before very, very, very successfully. I think Sean O'Malley is going to be on his bike this entire fight. I think this is going to be a cardio and footwork game, and he's just going to pick and poke at Merab until this thing is over. He's going to look to bank 3 rounds striking and then survive. Sean O'Malley, I think, is actually going to win a decision, you guys, so spoiler alert for Clint's hot props, but I think the over 4.5 at minus 280 makes sense. You can anchor stuff on that towards the end of the card. It's the last thing on the entire docket. You can hedge out with an under or fight doesn't go the distance, so like, I'm not saying I'm going to actually anchor it as in the anchor parlay system, but I'm saying if you want to tie a couple of long shot parlays to the over at a chalk price tag, you make a very, very nice opportunity for yourself to hedge out of it at plus money to go ahead and go under when you get to the end of the night if you're starting to get cold feet, if you really need to hit that score, if you really need that cash. So I like the over in the main event. That's UFC 316. You guys, again, please hit that like button on your way out and get subscribed if you haven't yet. We'll see you in a few minutes for Clint's hot props. Good luck this week. Let's roll.